The Indian rupee has fallen sharply, at one point breaking through the historic level of $1 to 90 rupees. Since Modi came to power, the Indian rupee has depreciated by more than 50%, yet India's nominal GDP continues to rise rapidly. In her program, Palki claimed that India's domestic economy is growing vigorously and that the rupee's decline is related to foreign capital outflows, trade wars, and the trade deficit. She even said the Reserve Bank of India could have defended the rupee by selling US dollars, but gave up because the rupee fell below the psychological support level they had in mind. Actually, I have said many times in my videos that Palki often talks nonsense about topics she does not understand, and her news reports are never aimed at telling the truth. Instead, everything serves Modi and the BJP. Let us first talk about why Palki's lack of basic economic knowledge. She said the Reserve Bank of India can defend the rupee by selling US dollars. This is complete nonsense. India's foreign exchange reserves are roughly a little over 700 billion US dollars, which looks large, but compared with the entire US dollar circulation market, its influence is negligible. India is not a heavyweight player like China or Japan. India's foreign exchange reserves have to meet the following core needs. 1. To pay for imported goods and services. The Indian rupee has extremely poor international credibility, equivalent to waste paper. India must use US dollars or euros to buy anything from abroad. Unlike China, which can demand payment in renminbi, or Saudi Arabia and Russia, which can use resources for barter or book entry trade, India has nothing valuable to export except cow dung and curry. To obtain foreign goods and services, India must pay hard currency. Note that India is one of the world's largest trade deficit countries. Its annual trade deficit with China alone reaches almost 100 billion US dollars. Goods and machinery imported from China are essential for Indian people's daily lives and industrial production. 2. The Indian government is deep in debt. Nearly 40% of its annual revenue goes to interest payments. This includes debt owed to international institutions such as the IMF and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Obviously, these must be repaid in US dollars or euros. No institution wants Indian rupees. India also needs to keep foreign exchange reserves to cope with the shock of massive foreign capital withdrawal from its financial system. All these factors determine that India cannot defend the rupee by selling US dollars. In any case, the rupee's international credibility is equivalent to waste paper and is not worth defending. 3. Foreign exchange reserves are also needed to sustain massive military purchases. India's own military industry is a complete joke. The Indian Armed Forces' terrible performance in air battles with Pakistan fully exposed the backwardness of Indian military equipment. India has poor relations with all its neighbors and has to face military pressure from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and China at the same time. 4. India is currently subject to US tariff sanctions. The Modi government secretly knelt down and promised to buy American LPG and agricultural products. These purchases also require foreign exchange. Moreover, selling US dollars would be equivalent to slapping the United States in the face, and the US government would immediately retaliate. The United States is India's largest source of foreign exchange surplus, and remittances from Indian immigrants in the US are a very important supplement. The United States has the ability to impose nuclear bomb-level financial sanctions on India and make its financial system collapse completely. Of course, there are many other reasons why the Reserve Bank of India cannot sell US dollars to defend the rupee, but the above 4 points alone are enough to slap Palki in the face. I hope she and her team can acquire some basic common sense before discussing a topic. Although news commentary does not have to be completely accurate, talking complete nonsense will seriously damage the country's image. Next, let us talk about the truth that Palki dares not mention. India's nominal GDP has kept growing rapidly. Palki said second quarter growth reached 8.2%, but clearly most international institutions have doubts about Indian government statistics. Professors at Jawaharlal Nehru University have repeatedly posted videos publicly accusing the Modi government of falsifying data. claiming that India's real GDP is only 2.5 trillion US dollars, not the claimed 4 trillion US dollars. India is simply not the world's fourth largest economy. The Modi government, just to win votes, keeps changing the statistical methodology and even counts cow dung in GDP to produce today's numbers. Of course, those Indians who frantically celebrate India's GDP surpassing Japan's do not understand that international institutions have already voted with their feet. This year, the rupee has fallen more than 5%, and foreign capital is accelerating its withdrawal from India. I will not talk about profound economic principles because most Indians cannot understand them. I will just talk about common sense. If a country's economy is developing rapidly, it has a huge population, strong technology, is the world's third largest military power, and is respected by most countries in the world, then that country has a bright future and will become a developed country by 2047. In that case, foreign capital would have no reason to withdraw from India on a large scale when 2026 is approaching, and the rupee exchange rate should never keep falling. I need to point out in particular that the US dollar is not in a strong period at all. On the contrary, because the US dollar has depreciated and the renminbi has appreciated, China's exports have already been affected, and the People's Bank of China is very likely to be forced to intervene to limit the renminbi's appreciation. According to the way Palki reports the news, India's economy is booming while China is about to collapse due to corruption and the real estate crash. So foreign capital should leave China and flow into India. The renminbi should plummet, and the rupee should soar. Yet the reality is that international capital is voting with its feet, and the facts are completely opposite to Palki's propaganda. A few days ago, I made a video specifically comparing today's Indian economy with China's economy in 2007. I listed a large amount of evidence, including electricity generation, cement production, foreign exchange reserve size, people's living standards, enterprise development level, and so on, to prove in detail that Indian economic data has been seriously falsified. You can find that episode in the India or Palki Sharma playlist. Watch it carefully, and you will understand that the Indian government's credibility is zero, and Palki and her news program are nothing but a joke. Finally, let me give one last simple and clear example. Indians are migrating crazily all over the world. They fabricate false documents, rely on help from fellow villagers, and pour into many countries across Asia, Europe, North America, and Australia. But the one thing they refuse to do is return to their own motherland and build the country. If India is really as excellent and has such a bright future as Modi and the BJP claim, why do these Indians not stay in their homeland? Can any Indian answer this question for me?